Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Transformers TCG Deck Techs, where we dare to think outside the box and we have fun doing it. My name is Jimmy, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We have new players joining the community all the time, but of course they may not have as large of a collection as the players that have been here since the very beginning, or even since the beginning of Wave 2. So what I thought that I would do is provide a series of videos that will provide budget builds for new players looking to, get a foothold in the game. But before we get to the deck, I wanted to show you guys my new playmat. I got this from inkedgaming.com, and I'm going to have a link to their website in the description of this video. But these guys do great work. This is actually, I think, the third playmat that I've gotten from them, and they have yet to disappoint. They went ahead and sent me this one that has my brand new logo on it. I hope you guys like my new logo. But if you want a custom playmat, go ahead and check out inkedgaming.com. They also have other items as well, so be sure to check them out. Also, for any new players that are watching this video, if you are finding that you are missing any of the cards from this deck, you can go ahead and check out topdecktcg.com. They have great prices on their singles, and as of this video airing, they do have each of these cards on their website right now available for sale. So check out topdecktcg.com, and if you use the promo code DeckTechs10, you'll actually get 10% off your order. So not only is this deck going to be easy on your wallet, but it's going to be even easier on your wallet if you use topdecktcg.com. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start looking at the team. And the first character that we're going to look at is Flamewar. And this is a great character to pick up. She's used a lot, primarily in defensive decks that want to give as much tough to their characters as possible, which is the case in the deck you're going to see in this video. But she does have an ability on her alt mode side that helps on offense. And it reads, when you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 until end of turn. So, of course, with this deck being heavily defensive and having a lot of blue icons, we're not going to be flipping her to alt mode very often. What we're looking for is her bot mode ability. And her bot mode ability reads, each of your characters has tough 1. So, you flip her to bot mode on turn 1, and all of your characters immediately become more difficult to take out. So that's the ability we're looking for with Flamewar. And the next character we're going to look at comes from the original starter set, which I'm assuming that new players tend to pick up quite often. But if not, you can actually pick up this guy as a single off of topdecktcg.com, and that is Bumblebee. And on his alt mode, he has an ability that says, when you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets Pierce 1 until end of turn. So there's primarily two ways that we're going to be dealing damage with this deck. One is with what Frenchie calls peanut damage, so direct damage, but also with pierce damage. Our characters are not going to be doing much in the way of natural damage because they have low attack values, and even opposing natural armors in all orange decks are going to have armor of some kind. So we're not going to be dealing much natural damage. We're going to be relying on pierce and direct damage. On his bot mode side, he has tough 1. So when you have Flamewar on bot mode and you have Bumblebee in bot mode, Bumblebee's going to have tough 2. So immediately he's going to have the ability to withstand a lot of punishment. Okay, so that's 2 characters. And the third character we're going to look at is Dead End. And in alt mode, he has tough 1. So as you can see, the characters that I'm choosing for this particular deck all have tough as a natural ability on their card. So one cool interaction with Flamewar and Dead End is, if you go first, or even if you don't, I guess, you flip Flamewar to bot mode, and you attack with Dead End in alt mode. And that way, the opponent has to attack into Dead End, and Dead End will have tough 2 right off the bat. So with tough 2, you're going to be flipping at least 4 cards, and Dead End has a natural 2 armor, so he's going to be tough to deal with. He does have a low health value, which means that, you know, opposing pierce and direct damage may be an issue, but, you know, as far as the way that this deck works, he's a great addition. In his bot mode, he has the ability that reads, when you flip to this mode, you draw a card. So there'll be plenty of situations where you don't have a card in your hand that's relevant and you kind of want to draw into something. You can go ahead and, you know, flip that into bot mode and draw that extra card and hopefully see something that will be relevant for that turn. But we're primarily just going to be leaving dead end in alt mode. And we have one more character for the deck, and he works very similarly to the way that dead end works, and that is Autobot Hot Rod. In alt mode, he has tough 1, so he's, you know, pretty much identical to dead end, except he has 3 additional health and 2 additional attack. But he works very much the same way with Flamewar as dead end does. But in bot mode, he has an ability that says, when this is in your KO area and you flip to this mode, do 1 damage to an enemy. So we kind of want Hot Rod to be taken out first. He's the only character that we have that has an ability that that triggers when he's in the KO area. And we do have some tricks in this deck to make it so that your opponent is forced to attack into Hot Rod. But that is our team. It comes to 23 stars. So we are going to have some battle cards in the deck that have stars on them. So we're going ahead and start looking at the deck. And the first card that we're going to look at is Reinforced Plating. And it's an armor that has a blue icon, and it reads tough 2. So, you know, you put this on one of your characters, you know, they're going to have an additional tough 2. So if you have Flamewar in bot mode and you put this on Bumblebee while he's in bot mode, he's going to have tough 4. So you're going to be flipping at least 6 cards on defense, which is incredible. So anybody that we put this on is going to be tough to take out. So we went ahead and put 3 copies of Reinforced Plating in the deck. The next card we're going to look at is along the same lines, and that is Sparring Gear. It's identical to Reinforced Plating as it gives our character tough 2, but what's different is this has an orange icon. Now, that may or may not come into play very much in this deck, but the important icon is the green icon. That green icon is basically going to guarantee that we're going to put this into our hand so that we can, you know, slap this on one of our characters. But because it does have a green icon, we don't need to run as many copies. So we went ahead and put 2 copies of Sparring Gear in the deck. The next card, which is going to be supplementing our armors, is Security Console. It has a white icon, and it's an upgrade utility. So we can have this on one of our characters that also has, you know, one of our armors on it. And it reads, when the upgraded character defends, draw a card, then plan 1. So this is going to help us stack the top of our deck. It also helps us draw cards because when the character defends, you draw a card, but you don't have to put that card back on top of your deck or any card that matter on top of your deck. Plan 1 is an optional ability. But if you want to make sure that you flip that blue icon, you could take a card from your hand that has a blue icon, put it on top of your deck, and you're guaranteed to flip, you know, that blue icon. But I like to keep my decks to 40 cards, so I went ahead and just put 2 copies of Security Console in the deck. Okay, so those are ways that we can protect our characters. Now we got to try to figure out ways to actually deal damage. And the first card we're going to look at is Handheld Blaster. And it's a weapon that has a blue and a green icon, and it reads, put on Autobots only. We do have 2 Autobots, so we have 2 targets for this card. And it says, while the upgraded character is attacking a Decepticon, it has Pierce 2. It also gives +2 damage, but the most important part of this card is that Pierce 2. So if we're up against a deck that has Decepticons in it, we can put this on one of our Autobots and do some guaranteed damage. But because it has a green icon, I just put 2 copies of Handheld Blaster in the deck. The next card, which is very similar to Handheld Blaster, is Scoundrel's Blaster. It's an upgrade weapon that also has a blue and a green icon, and it says put on Decepticons only. While the upgraded character is attacking an Autobot, it has Pierce 2, and it also gives +2 damage. But again, the Pierce 2 against Autobots is the important part of this card. So when we're playing this deck, we really want to analyze our opponent's team and kind of decide which ones of our characters we want to protect for the longest. So if we're up against a team that's heavy on Autobots, we want to protect our Decepticons so we can, get better use out of this card. And, on the flip side, if our opponent has a lot of Decepticons, we want to protect our Autobots so we can use this card to full effect. But again, this has a green icon, so I only had to put 2 copies of Scoundrel's Blaster in the deck. Now, if for whatever reason you don't get Scoundrel's Blaster or Noble's Blaster, I went ahead and put Piercing Blaster in the deck. It's got a white icon, and it's an upgrade weapon that has that gives our character Pierce 3. And it doesn't matter who we're attacking when we're using this card. It could be Autobot, Decepticon. We can put this on an Autobot or Decepticon. It doesn't matter. This doesn't give us any additional attack damage, but giving our characters Pierce 3 is really going to help, push damage through. But because it does not have a green icon, I put 3 copies of Piercing Blaster in the deck. The next card is Surprise Attack. It also has a white icon, but this is an action that reads, one of your characters gets Pierce 3 until end of turn. So it's basically like a one-shot Piercing Blaster. It's identical in the way that it works for that turn. But if you have this in your hand and you're able to play a Noble's Blaster or a Scoundrel's Blaster and attack into the appropriate enemy, altogether you're going to have Pierce 5, which is really good. So I went ahead and put 3 copies of Surprise Attack in the deck. Okay, so we have cards that help us deal with deal pierce damage. So we're going to add some cards that will help us deal direct damage. And the first card that we're going to look at is Armed Hovercraft. It has a blue icon, so it's going to help us when we flip on defense. But it's a weapon that reads, when you put this on a ranged character, do 1 damage to each enemy. It also gives our character +1 damage. But of course, the ability is the important part. Dealing 1 damage to each enemy is incredible. Unless you're, against Minosaur with Motormaster, then you only deal like the 1 damage to Motormaster, but that's still fine. It's whatever. But we do have 2 ranged characters in the deck, being Hot Rod and Dead End, and they are ranged in both modes. So it doesn't matter which mode they're in, you can put this on one of them and deal 1 damage to each enemy. So I went ahead and put 3 copies of Armed Hovercraft in the deck. Another card that's going to help us, deal a little bit of direct damage is Underhanded Tactics. It's got a blue icon, and it's an action that reads, do 1 damage to an enemy. If it's KO'd this way, repair 1 damage from one of your Decepticons. Now, of course, we're not always going to have Decepticons on the table for that second part of the ability to go off, but the first part of this ability is always going to go off, regardless of what we have on the table. So, much like Hot Rod, dealing 1 damage doesn't seem like a big deal, but when one of your opposing characters is at 1 health remaining, it's kind of nice to be able to take care of that character without having to attack into that character. But because it has a blue icon, I went ahead and put 3 copies of Underhanded Tactics in the deck. The next card is Plasma Burst. Now, this does not have an icon, but it's a really strong card. It's an action that reads, do 2 damage to an enemy. So it's along the same lines as Underhanded Tactics and Hot Rod in a way, but dealing 2 damage to an enemy can really make the difference in a single turn. Again, very similarly, if you have an opposing character that's at 2 health remaining, or if you deal 2 damage to a character, it may mean the difference from, attacking with, 3 pierce and taking out that character versus, just dealing 3 pierce to that character and still having him on the table. But I went ahead and put 3 copies of Plasma Burst in the deck. Now, the next couple cards are going to, help us be a little bit tricky with this deck. The first card we're going to look at is Turbo Boosters. Now, it has an orange icon, so it's not going to help us out on defense, but it's an upgrade utility that you put on cars only. So for the new players out there, you got to make sure that your characters are in the correct modes when you're playing certain cards. And with this card, it has to be put on a character that's in car mode. But this is put on cars only, and it reads, when you put this on a character, you untap that character. And of course, it also gives +1 damage, but again, we're trying to deal pierce damage and, direct damage rather than natural damage. So that +1 damage it's not irrelevant, but it's not going to come into play very much. But we're going to be trying to play this on Hot Rod. And the reason for that is if you flip Flamewar on turn 1 and you attack in with Hot Rod for your first attack, your opponent's going to have to attack back into Hot Rod. And if we play this on Hot Rod in our following turn, we can untap Hot Rod and attack with him again. Therefore, he is the only, tapped character. Your opponent has to attack into him again. And we're trying to make sure that he's the first character to go out because of his ability in the KO area. But this works on Dead End and Bumblebee as well. So we went ahead and put 3 copies of Turbo Boosters in the deck. Now, the next card, it's a rare, I know, but it's not very expensive. These run about $2 a piece on topdecktcg.com, and they are very relevant for this deck. And that card is Start Your Engines. It's got a blue icon, and it says flip each of your characters from bot mode to car mode, then untap one of your cars. So what's cool about the interaction with this card in this deck is it will not flip Flamewar to motorcycle mode. So she's going to be providing tough to your characters even after playing this. But this is going to help, untap Hot Rod. It's going to help, flip Bumblebee back to car mode if that's what you're needing to do. Or if you've had to flip Dead End to bot mode, you can use this to flip him back to car mode. But this is just really strong. It untaps Hot Rod. So I went ahead and put 3 copies of Start Your Engines in the deck. Now, like I said earlier, we have 23 stars worth of characters, so we have room for stars in our battle deck. So I went ahead and put 2 copies of Universal Network Access in the deck. And it has a blue icon, and it's an action that draws you 3 cards. So it's very strong. As far as the star cards go, I felt that this was the one that fit the deck most properly. But again, because we only had 2 stars remaining, there's only 2 copies of Universal Network Access in the deck. Now, the next card is going to help us deal with opposing upgrades. And that card is Vaporize. It's got a blue icon, and it's an action that reads Scrap an Enemy Upgrade. With all the pierce damage that we have in this deck and all the direct damage, we're not really too concerned about opposing armors. It's, those high damage weapons and, cheeky utilities that the opponent's going to have that we're going to be focusing on with this card. But I went ahead and put 3 copies of Vaporize in the deck. And the last card, which is by far the least exciting, is Handheld Blaster. And it's a upgrade weapon that gives our character Bold 1. So we're not going to be using this as an upgrade. The reason why this is in here, and you're going to see this quite a bit for the new players, you're going to see this quite a bit with certain cards. They're in there solely for the icons. This has 2 blue icons. So when we're flipping this on defense, it's going to help us out quite a bit in that regard. There's other cards out there that also have 2 blue icons, but they're fairly expensive. So we don't really want to put that in a budget deck. I mean, you can pick those up later if you like, but this is only in there for the 2 blue icons. But I put 3 copies of Handheld Blaster in the deck. Okay, so that is the deck, guys, but don't go anywhere yet. I have a surprise for you guys. With this being my first budget deck build, and with it targeting, new players, I kind of wanted to give back to the community. You guys have been fantastic to me, so I thought I'd be fantastic back. But anybody who likes and subscribes and puts a comment in the comment section has a chance to win 3 copies of The Bigger They Are. This is a rare. It's an action. It's got a blue icon that reads, one of your characters gets +2 damage until end of turn. While it's attacking an enemy this turn that has more stars than it, it gets Pierce 4. This card is incredible, especially in a deck like this where you have 4 characters that have very few stars. This is going to come into play a lot. Now, if you pick this card up and put it in the deck, or you're the lucky guy that wins the contest, I would suggest replacing Surprise Attack with this card because it'll give you some additional blue for the deck, and it gives you a bit more pierce and a bit more damage. So it's a much better fit than Surprise Attack. I just have Surprise Attack in the deck kind of as a placeholder for this card, but these 3 copies can be yours if you just like and subscribe and put a comment in the comment section. Just say hi, or what you like about the deck, or even what you would change about the deck. It doesn't really matter, but just always remember that this game is meant to be fun, and hopefully this deck can be fun for you, and maybe you can come up with your own ideas for decks. And never forget, you can win if you dare. Take care, guys.